are you familiar with this book here?
Oh,
The
hell.
Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So chapter 7, Dr. Josh talks about how he's an Assyriologist, and he talks about going to his like to teach the adult group at the church, and they're teaching them about like the Bible and Assyriology and everything like that. And so he asks everyone, who's the big Bible scholars in this room? And someone he quotes the scripture, and then someone says that's in Ezekiel, and then he quotes another scripture, and someone says that's in John, and then he quotes this, and all these hands go up, and they all say it's the flood of Noah.
What? Okay, so what was the quote?
The quote is, the seventh day when it came, I brought out a dove. I let it loose. Off went the dove, but then it returned. Then was no place to land, so it came back to me. I brought out a swallow. I let it loose. Off went the swallow, and then it returned. There was no place for it to land, so it came back to me. I brought out a raven. I let it loose. Off went the raven. It saw the waters proceeding, finding food, bowing and bobbing. It did not come back to me. So
don't tell him what it is yet. Now, I just want to show something just for anybody who's like, here's what Genesis says. After 40 days, Noah opened a window. He made the ark, sent out a raven. You already said that in your quote. Like, what did you have? A different translation than me, maybe? Okay. And it kept flying back, and then he sent a dove out. Oh, you said that too. Oh, so it's the same text, but you probably just have a different translation. Maybe that's why it's a little bit different, right? Right?
Yeah, it must be. Yeah. Well, the thing, so
you got to tell him. You got to tell him what it is.
Okay, so this is from the Epic of Gilgamesh. So this is lines 147 to 156.
That was not Genesis. That was what he read. No. Epic of Gilgamesh. What is it? 2,000 years older than the Bible?
Well, I did so much non-scholarly research.
I'll be generous. 1,500 years older than the Bible.
Oh, it depends. It depends because the Epic of Gilgamesh was written over 2,000 years. So some Christian apologists will say they'll try and say that the flood narrative wasn't fully formed until you get to like the later parts of it. But if you can pull up the graph that I made, also fact check this graph. I've fact checked it a lot myself, but it could be wrong. But you see this, I made this right based on the sources that I could find. But you see this like yellow line here, like down the middle. That's when the Epic of Gilgamesh was created. Maybe I could share my screen so I could zoom in. Actually,
yeah, that'll be better. Actually,
let me just quickly find it.
So, and while you're looking that up, the idea that two different stories can have a similar, like he let out a bird. Okay, that's like, okay, that could be a coincidence. But when it's specific to the raven and the dove, and you're in a boat and a flood just happened and God just wiped everything off the earth, those are so specific that the odds of two different stories telling this story this way is just impossible.
This is just one thing, by the way. We got like a lot of stuff. So you see here, so we have the Epic of Gilgamesh that happens, it's written between 2100 to 1200 BCE. But then you have Genesis, which is written 600 to 500 BCE. And you've got this 600-year gap. So you got 600 years between when Genesis was written and when the Epic of Gilgamesh, what I just read, was written. And you can just see, I could list off the things that you find in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So the creation of humans in both stories, humans are shaped from the earth. In Genesis, God forms Adam from dust of the ground.
I'm glad you have Genesis and Exodus correctly dated to 5th and 6th century, because people say, 800s, no way. Show me one place, one person citing Genesis in the 8th century or 7th century. Like nobody's not mentioned anywhere. Like nobody's talking about it. Then it starts showing up late, and I'm glad that you had that, because I've seen people, even skeptics, that will grant that it's in the 700s maybe. Like, no, it's not. It's not.
I know, and
you know what I mean.
And I know, and the other thing too is like, and you got like the difference between like the Exodus, that actually like the Bible dates the Exodus, and then like when it was written, when the story was written down, and you've got this 1300-year gap, or 700-year gap, and then but the thing here with Proverbs,
it gets even worse than that for the Exodus. The Exodus. So the Exodus, people try to say that it's the Hyksos. The Hyksos explosions in 1500 BCE. 1300 is when the story in the Bible lines up if you do the math. But what happened in 1300 BCE is the opposite. In fact, Pharaoh Ramses conquers Israel in 1300 BCE. So that would mean that Moses and the Israelites went into the promised land and then got conquered again by Egypt, but the Bible forgot to mention that. But you want to know why? Because that would be like, what's up with this promise that here's your land? Oh, by the way, you're going to get conquered one more time, and then I'm going to make another promise. That wouldn't pan out right. So that whole history is gone. It doesn't even exist. They don't even say the Pharaoh's name, by the way. So it's not. It's not.
Our first reference of Israel as a group of people is the Merneptah Seal, and that is still like that's long after the last strokes of the Epic of Gilgamesh have even been.
But even that might be. I've heard scholars, and I think this makes more sense, that it's not Israel, it's Jezreel.
Oh, okay.
If you look at that text, and by the way, Jezreel and Israel would look the same in that in that font, or not font, in that script. Sorry, that's that very script. If you write Jezreel and Israel, it looks the same. And it's possible that Israel even got its name from the city of Jezreel. Maybe I'm not. Don't quote me on that. But the reason why I'm saying that is because the text is naming cities. It's going, here's this city, here's this city, here's this city. Why would they just throw a kingdom of Israel in there? It's just naming cities. And Jezreel, we know Jezreel is an ancient city from that time period. Now here's the kicker. Why would Israel randomly be mentioned in this one text and then never again for another 500 years?
That's a good point. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that.
Those scholars, I don't have the names on the top of my head, but I should do a video on this. I can show you. There are some scholars who think, what's his name? Israel Finkelstein's one of them. Israel Finkelstein, who's a brilliant expert.
He wrote the book Jesus, right?
He thinks it's like 900, 800 BCE when Israel shows up.
For one, it's the earliest story that we have. One of the earliest stories that we have, the Epic of Gilgamesh. But the creations of humans is the same. Like they're both formed from the dust of the earth. A goddess, Aruru, creates Enkidu from clay. The existence of the garden. So both narratives mention a garden with sacred trees. In Genesis, it's the Garden of Eden with the Tree of Knowledge and the Tree of Life. In Gilgamesh, there's this sacred cedar tree, a forest, guarded by the demon Humbaba. Both stories, there's serpent and immortality. So like you have to like.
What's the name of the demon?
Humbaba.
Humbaba, huh? Hold on a second.